Today we're going to be talking about filtration in front of the lens. Let's go. For those of you who don't use filters, when you start to look at your imagery and you add a filter, you start to find a new avenue, a new opening to your creativity as a filmmaker. So for this particular test, I wanted to dive into filters that focused on softening a digital image. A lot of today's cameras they have lots of megapixels, they have lots of information, they have lots of sharpness built into them. What filters do, and what a lot of manufacturers are starting to really push out, are filters that soften that image, that soften that digital feel. In my opinion, I find it's because of the way our eyes see. Our eyes don't see the world in super hard sharpness. We see a little fall off. We see the nice little, degradation and everything. We can obviously see detail, but we see it, softly. And you almost don't want to even pay attention to all the detail of someone's face. And a lot of actors, they love it that we can soften the image. They can kind of like blemish it all together. I know a lot of women who, when they put on makeup, they put foundation to kind of like soften the blemish. They kind of blend it together to really bring out the contouring. And this is what lens filters are going to do for digital cameras. It kind of like blends in the colors around each pixel to kind of make a nice softer image, but not soft that it's like out of focus, but soft where it's like pleasing to the eye. And that's what filters are doing. So the test that I wanted to do was to take a very popular filter that a lot of people are coming after, which are the Tiffen black ProMist filters, and there's a lot of variable degrees of that, and compare them to the filters that I've purchased because it's the ones that I enjoyed. So we went over to visit one of the rental houses here in Toronto, Habibi Film Rentals, and they graciously let myself and my good buddy Eddie visit them to do some tests, and the filter test was one of the tests we did. So they had for me to play with the quarter black ProMist, the half black ProMist, and the black ProMist level 1. And then for myself that I wanted to showcase is I actually have a Schneider black frost filter quarter that I've enjoyed, and I also bought for another project the PrismFX Dream Effects. It's one of the cheaper options, and cheaper doesn't mean it's bad in any form or form. It's just they don't have the R&D that was behind all of the other manufacturers. They're just a smaller group of people, so they can obviously keep their costs down, which in general keeps their products down, which is their filter. So let's dive into the test so you can see exactly what we did and how we kind of went with the test, and hopefully you learned something from this. So let's go. I'm here in Davinci just to make sure the color looks great, because that's the color software of my choice. The nodes are empty, as you can see here. Every single one of these clips have nothing on them. Native, how it came out of the camera, and Davinci deciding this is what Rec 79 looks like with S-Log3. During the test, what you're going to see is Eddie's going to pull his phone out, use a little tiny point source off of his phone. He's going to bring it up, we're going to put the filtration in, and so you can see the difference between like no filtration to filtration. He's going to scoot over and you're going to see the light in the background, and we're going to do the same thing. No filtration, full, and then the filtration setting that we're using. So that way you can kind of see what it looks like for both a little bit bigger light that's farther back, and of course a more tiny point source light that's pointing right directly at the camera. And let's go ahead and bring the waveform out here. There we are. So I'll bring the waveform out here just so we can see it together. Black ProMist filter quarter, and as you can see, this is without filtration. If you just watch the waveform, it's going to kind of like compress on the top of the bottom. So the lights are going to come down towards darkness, the dark's going to come towards the light. Change the contrast some. Boom, right there. And you can see it right here at the bottom, definitely jumps. So the little line up here on the waveform is the little light. And you can see it looks like a little tiny, it looks like a little area that is covering. And then when I go into where it's showing you the filtration, it widens out. It shows you the bloom effect is really in effect here. And it's nice and soft, and I like that gradual fall off. So right now it looked like this light was coming as it's true all one white. And when you open it up, it's actually opening up a little bit of red in here. So on the 150 background, this is no filtration. Let's look at the waveform again. So watching the waveform, jump forward, the bloom comes out of the 150, and it looks quite nice. I like it. I dig it. It's definitely something. I can see why people like these black ProMist filters. It's a very pretty thing, but it's a lot. I mean, this is only a quarter. We haven't even gotten to the other ones yet. Up here at the top of the waveform, you see this line that is the 150 light, and then if you jump into the filters, you can then see the same thing that happened when we were on the phone, where it kind of opened up some of the red from it and shows you some of that nice flaring. which means it's kind of warming up the overall. You can kind of see a little bit of warmth coming in. So it is warming the overall image altogether. So this is the Dream Effects. And I'm gonna go ahead and fast forward to where we see again the phone. So there's the phone again. Now if we jump into the filtration, boom. It wasn't a huge jump. What you notice here did add a little bit of bloom, but it's very subtle. And really, it only lifted the blacks just a hair. I mean, look at the waveform right here. There's a little sharp dip right here with the no filtration. And then when I jump into filtration, it just like softens up. Remember in the Tiffen black quarter filter on, you can really see it open up the flaring, and you got some of that red coming out. And here it's just softening the edge. Visually, you can definitely see the flare come out, but I mean, on the waveform, it's not huge. So this is the Dream Effects filter now without any filter for the 150, and we're putting it on, and it's super subtle. It's highlighting just a hair. So again, the Dream Effects filter it has its place. If you don't want to go crazy and you want to have just a little bit, just kind of soften some of it, that's not too bad. This is the black ProMist full, half now. So again, this is a clear filtration. I have Eddie bring up the phone. And now we're gonna go ahead and put the filter in front of it. Boom. I mean, that's a huge jump. It almost looks like we're crushing the blacks when we're not, but it can almost looks like the blacks are almost crushed when it's clear. And then the moment we put that in, it almost lifts them up quite a bit. Yeah, and then look at the phone flare from like clear to non-clear. Look how much this opens up. You can really see that huge opening. So in the 150 in the back, here we go again. This is before and this is after, and yeah, I mean, look how much that 150 blooms. It's like boom. Which, I mean, if that's a look you're looking for, it looks great. It's almost too much for me, honestly. I rather have the quarter. The quarter to me is a lot. Yeah, I think that to me is the amount of control I'd want for a project, unless I'm trying to go into like a dream phase. All right, so now we're on to the Schneider Black Frost. This is again clear, and the Black Frost, there it is. And to me, I like this. Now the interesting thing what the Black Frost did is actually cooled the overall image versus warmth. Because remember on the Black ProMist, they actually gave it a little bit of a warmth. I like that cooling effect, and of course you could warm it up in post. Jump to here, you see it open up, but it's not really blooming out the colors too much. It's keeping it pretty white, keeping a consistent white. Some projects you'd want that. You don't want it to be dreamy warm. You don't want to do that. So just keep that in mind, that this filter gives you pretty good bloom, but keeps your colors close to what your camera is seeing without filtration. See, it just softens the blacks, doesn't go crazy bringing them up, but it does do better. It is a bigger jump of contrast than the Dream Effects filter, but it's not as intense as the quarter black ProMist. Here's the 150, and this is the 150 now, and then we're gonna put the filter in front of it. And same thing, it's got just enough, and you can see the difference, especially on this toolbox back here. You can see how nice and black the toolbox is. The moment you put the filter, let's see how we do it again. Yeah, it brings the contrast of that black, you know, out of focus, but deep black toolbox in the background forward, you know, and also still lets the 150 back to this Area 150 bloom a little bit. The last filter that we actually test out was the ProMist full, or like the one. And here we are. So this is clear, and I'm just imagining things gonna like blow up. Yeah, super blown up. I mean, you can see Eddie's eyes pretty clearly here. You can see his face because everything, the lights, the beam of the angle of light is hitting us directly, and then here it's, if we jump, boom, it's like okay, let's spread this light. This would be, I guess, a good filter for if you were doing a scene and you had someone with a flashlight and they're flashing in someone's eyes, and you want that like, oh, I can't see kind of moment in the flashlights in front of you. So that could be a good moment to use this much filtration on your, watch the blacks. I mean, we were talking about these filtrations supposed to like help with contrast. Watch these blacks. So here's the blacks. So a huge jump on the waveform for the blacks. It really takes out from being crushed at all. And same with the brights. And yeah, that's getting really softened. And of course, same with the other parts of Black ProMist. They all seem to be doing it all, which I actually do like about these Tiffen Black ProMist, is no matter which level of filtration you go with, they all have the same optics. They have the same color rendering in each one of these, which is good, right? You want that. You don't want to be like, oh, let's start with a quarter here and let's do a half here, and then you find your colors have shifted, you know, making the edit later a hassle. Okay, now let's see what the 150 is. Here's the 150, and I expect it to again explode and fill up the whole room, and yes, and it did that exactly. And it almost looks like here it looks like a volcano erupted on the waveform. It's just like spilling out all this warmth, this red warmth coming out of there. So you go from like a nice sharp beam of light to the sensor to boom, let's like really give us some bloom and show us some of this warmth from that light. And I'm gonna play this back for you so you can kind of see how this looks, full frame instead of looking with all the, the editing software around it. When it comes to any filtration, you want to make sure that you kind of think about the story in mind. What is this filtration going to be doing for you? And we do a lot of the filtration not to say we're going to do it in post, but to say, you know what, let's save some post time and do everything practically. And that's something you probably hear a lot in today's film world, that we want to do it practically so that when we get to the edit, it's like a much quicker post edit. It saves your budget. It makes producers happy that you can save the budget of the post edit down. You can also shave time it takes to do that. So filtration has that value as well, the value of just speeding up the process after the filming process of your production has happened and done, is said and done. At the same time though, other things you want to kind of keep in mind of, these tests were done on my camera setup and my lens setup that I currently use. And whenever you're doing these tests, you got to think about that as well. What lens are you using? What camera are you using? What lighting are you using? Because that's going to make an effect on the way that the filter kind of like lets the light fly through it, to the sensor, through the lens to the sensor, because that makes another different variable. The image that you saw in your head, your mind's eye before you made it to camera, and the connection you have with the story, with the director, and ensure all of it is aligned with filter. Don't just throw a filter on because someone said this is a cool filter, you gotta use it. So I hope you learned something from this. A little bit goes a long way, and that's all we ask for all these different videos you probably see. And I look at videos thinking, okay, there's some kind of small information I get out of that. That's a win for me, and I'm hoping you get a little bit of win from what you've learned from, my little test that I did here that I wanted to showcase to you guys. So that's really about it. Get out there, keep filming, and hope to see you guys on a project one day. Have a good one.